Hello and welcome to another conversation between me, Safia, and Melanie. We are talking to you today about a topic that Melanie and I think we are very, very suited to talk about, especially given the fact that our experiences are such a big reflection of each other. And that is this conversation around lessons from rock bottom. Now, I don't think that there's anyone on God's green earth that has been spared from rock bottom. But I speak for myself, and Melanie will join in. But I speak for myself, in many ways, rock bottom has been the blessing that I didn't know I needed to have. It has taught me so much. And perhaps at the time that I'm in rock bottom, I don't really have a deep sense of appreciation for it. But in retrospect, I know and I understand that it has a very, very important role in my life. And it is such a big part of the way in which life, reshapes me and recreates me and allows me to learn new ways to respond to situations and to challenges and to reach forward to opportunities. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Melanie. One of the things that I find so fascinating is that of all the human beings on earth, Melanie and my path should, just cross, because the sequences and the synchronicities of our journey is just utterly, utterly fascinating to me. So Melanie is looking back at me with a huge smile. Melanie, what's your take on this rock bottom story?
Hi, Safia, and hi, everyone. Yeah, no, look, there's definitely, as we were chatting earlier, there's definitely lessons to be learned, valuable life lessons when it comes to rock bottom. But it's also, it comes with a choice. And I just believe, like most things in life, it's about choice. You can either embrace the process, go through it, rediscover yourself, redefine yourself, reinvent yourself, whatever the case may be. Or you can kind of allow it to sink you, even further, because you can't go further than rock bottom, right? And like they say, there's only one way out, and that's up.
Yeah.
So it's really about a choice. And I think it brings us to having to make healthy choices or positive choices. And I know it's easier said than done. But on my journey, I tend to thrive in that space. It's about that redefining and relooking at yourself. It's about setting standards and expectations that you are capable of doing certain things or changing the situation around. And it's not an easy space to be in, but it does kind of become easier with time. And I don't think that you hit rock bottom just once.
No.
I think rock bottom can be a repetitive cycle until you've learned the lesson. So it's like life, God, the universe, source takes you through a process of learning from your mistakes or from your past, your lessons. And until you get it, you're going to keep going through that cycle.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah. So I think that it not only helps you to learn the lessons from your mistakes, but also helps you to discover the new ways of thinking and the new skills you need so that you can reach for opportunities that you wouldn't have been equipped for had you not gone through that rock bottom process. I mean, I agree with you. I've bounced into this place quite a few times, and I've never lost anything material. I've always gained things. Now, I'm not suggesting that it is a place that we must all aim to get to rapidly. It's just that once you are there, you've got to use, I had a boss that once used to say, you've got to use a crisis well. And so, no, that was actually what he said. He said, you can't let a good crisis go to waste. And for me, that's really one of the big things that I take from it is this idea that it's there for a reason. It's not there just because. It's not there because there's a cruel joke being played on you. It's like you said, it's the way in which you think about it that determines whether or not it's a tragedy or it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So Melanie, one of the things that I'm hearing you say is that what rock bottom does is it interrupts your way of being. It brings you to a place of choice. It takes you off of autopilot and you come to new choices and you kind of recreate yourself, right? Now, for anyone who's listening, the way in which Melanie and I have experienced rock bottom have both been similar and very different. And in this episode, when we prepared for this episode, we were really just thinking about the commonalities we've had over the past 20, 25, maybe 30 years of our careers. We both worked as students. We both went to university in spite of the fact that it wasn't on the cards for us. We both managed to get through university, land jobs, grow our careers in ways that neither of us anticipated our careers would grow. And both of us exited our corporate careers very, very unexpectedly. And the thing that we realized was that when we came into self-employment, one of the things that really challenged us was stepping back and starting with a beginner's mind, recreating ourselves in this place of being self-employed. And theoretically, you could actually say unemployed for a long period of time, because there was definitely no income coming in. And then alongside all of these journeys, there's other personal stuff that's also happening that is ricocheting us all over the show. Personal losses, personal tragedies, personal struggles, and all of this being, very hyper magnetized by the fact that we also have to create an income to support our families, to keep a roof over our heads. And so that's very much the orientation from which we are talking today. We've got 5 key messages we want to share with you. But I think that it is appropriate in all the different versions of rock bottom that we've encountered. Would you agree with that, Melanie?
100%, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions around, the 5 that we chatted about. The first one was this idea that rock bottom is an invitation to redefine success. What happened for you, Melanie?
So I think a very key observation for me is that it's almost like it's a subjective experience, right? So it can be different from person to person. And my experience by no means is more scarier than the next person. So it really depends on our, I guess, our level of understanding, our coping mechanisms, how we are conditioned to deal with stress and loss, what choices we would make to kind of navigate through the experience, so that we can reach personal breaking point, right? And another key observation for me is that it comes with a turning point, because there's only so far that you can go when it comes to that particular experience in hitting rock bottom. It's that mindset of things can't get any worse.
Yeah.
And we kind of touched on it earlier, around the resilience that you tend to gain when you're in rock bottom. And it's not like to say that we are taking our heads and pushing it into the sand like an ostrich. It's really just about it is what it is. This is my circumstance, and I can choose how I'm going to deal with it. Either take it on the chin, push through, find ways of coping, reaching out for help or seeking help, friends, family, therapists, support groups, whether it's doing the things that you love, it's gym, it's meditation, or hanging out with friends, whatever it is, it's about finding your coping mechanisms and then anticipating your recovery and your growth, because there's definitely recovery. There will be recovery because that's the turning point. It doesn't mean that it's the end. And it then creating almost anticipation or excitement for the next chapter or the next journey, the next part of your growth.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to rebuild, to redefine, to reinvent. It's like a clean canvas, and you get to make the choice, but I don't think a lot of people or many people would think about it like that. You've got to be mentally strong and emotionally sound to be able to see or to navigate it in that fashion, because a lot of people, struggle with that.
Yeah.
And it does become a mental block or a mental health issue. So there's positives and the negatives, and I'm not discounting the negatives because we are all different.
Yeah. One of the things that I think stands out for me very much in the context of redefining success was, when I had the small victories, my victories as a self-employed person, and I had a small victory, paled by comparison to the kinds of victories that I would have when I was in corporate. And so I couldn't even see them in the beginning as being victories. And so, really having the ability to look at what winning looked like for me in my new reality meant that I had to have big shifts, and I had to really learn how to appreciate things. And if memory serves me correctly, in the beginning of my journey, even when I was busy winning, but because I was comparing it to what I was experiencing in corporate, I would be so disappointed with what I was accomplishing. And I would write it down and actually become depressed about it and really just down about it. And it was a big, big shift in my mindset around, accepting this as a gift, accepting this as growth, accepting it. And my coping mechanism until not even then, until recently, my coping mechanism was actually to, push myself hard by belittling my successes. But what I learned, thanks to my various bounces into rock bottom as a self-employed person, was to really learn and celebrate the small things, the small itsy bitsy micro things, and to respect it with all my heart.
I love that. Because what I hear you saying is that it changes your perspective, right? It gives you new perspective. And I think, like most things in life, you can't unlearn or grow or progress if you don't change the way you look at things. It's like the quote that Dr. Wayne Dyer has about when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, I love that because it's in that moment, when your perspective shifts, there's something beautiful about life that kind of happens or unfolds, because you're now in a space where you not just reevaluate who you are, but you also reevaluate your values, your relationships with others, your goals, you know.
Yeah.
And you can only do that once you get the other side
Yeah.
of life, you know. I love that as an insight.
Yeah. So the perspective change is the breakthrough, and then all the results that come from that perspective change just kind of happens. I'm not saying you don't work hard at it, but kind of until you get that perspective change, you can't even see what is available to you, right?
Yeah. And it's like, if I can just give you an example, like, and it's a simple thing that we kind of try to teach from a financial fitness perspective, right? Because now you're in a space where, you know, you're limited in terms of finances and resources, and you have to make cuts and you have to reduce and change your lifestyle and do all sorts of things that you were never geared for or prepared for, but you've now got to do it because you're in the thick of it.
Yes.
And one of the big things for me was, I like, for me, I had a different view in terms of how much lots of money, having lots of money was versus not having lots of money.
Yeah.
You know, it's that monetary appreciation, you know, where you suddenly find that you know, you make different choices when it comes to spending your money, because you've now placed value on it in terms of, this is the thing that's going to keep the roof over my head. It's going to put petrol in my car. It's going to put food on the table. I need to respect it. You know, I can't just misuse it. So it's what we were talking about earlier, where it's the 200 Rand versus the 2000 Rand, you know, mentality.
Yeah.
And it means different things for different people,
Yes.
you know, but I'll respect the 200 Rand more now versus what I would have done possibly um, 2, 3 years back, you know. So, yeah, there's also that change in perspective that happens.
100%, Melanie. And, you know, at the risk of oversharing, you know, for my household, things got really, really rough because I didn't only find myself in self-employment. My husband was also finding himself in self-employment very, very rapidly, both of us like a month apart. And so our worlds, the carpet was pulled out from under our feet, and we really had to sit down and decide what is really and truly important. And when you're blasé about things, it's almost less. I can't make a generalization, you know, it wouldn't be fair, but in our instance, there was a blaséness about the way in which we lived that made it trivialized lots of things in our lives, right? I don't know if I'm making sense, but once we had to sit down and really figure out what's important, it really helped us to understand how we were attaching value to things that actually didn't have a lot of value.
Mm.
There was a level of indifference that we had to things, and now we're like, but that's actually the important things. And so how we allocated not just money, but all our resources, it changed so fundamentally because of this experience. So I think one of the things that for me transpired was that there's definitely a different respect for what I've been given.
Mm.
And I'm not limiting it to money. I know that's how this conversation started, but I have a new respect for the time I have, for the people around me, for one of the other things that we spoke about was the quality of the relationships that we have. You know, I can really say to you, hand over heart, that I have a much smaller social circle now. But the social circle that I have now is one that I can go the distance with. Right. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, I love that. And I think, you know what, it's important to be open about it, you know, to be, because what often happens is, like you now saying, at the risk of oversharing, but it's your experience can try and teach other people. People can learn from your experiences. And for me, there's this stigma that's
Yeah.
often attached to rock bottom, and I think if we can eradicate that in some shape or form, we would accomplish much. Because when people actually share their rock bottom experience and, the steps that they took to recover, it will definitely reduce the stigma,
Yeah.
because we're putting a positive spin around it. It also, I guess, motivates or inspires people to not make the unhealthy choices that come with that, because it's this mental health thing, the financial difficulties, the loss, because you definitely, in the space that you're in, it's gonna start impacting your home life, your family, your children, your relationships with other people. Um, and there's a big thing that comes with that, where people would turn to substance, to try and cope, as an example. So you shouldn't apologize for oversharing, because it's something that you never know who it may touch in a positive way and give someone hope.
Yeah.
It's important to then, I guess, also understand that it's a deeply personal experience. And it should be considered a turning point for positive change.
Yeah. You're making me think of the work of Brene Brown, where she talks about the fact that our pivot points, our ability to break through, very often comes when we learn how to own our stories. Because in the
Yes.
absence of owning our stories, we retrieve into the darkness of shame. And shame exists wherever there is silence, secrecy, and judgment. And when we're in a place of shame, we become increasingly powerless in terms of exploring the choices that is available, because we have to keep these secrets and we have to be silent about these things. Whereas, like you're saying, the moment you can own your story, new options can be considered. And a new
Yeah.
option, in my instance, it didn't transpire in that way, but an option that my husband and I said was like, if the house has to go, it goes. We're not going to let it be a noose or a yoke over our shoulders, right? And so thankfully it didn't get there. But ironically, the moment we were able to talk about it, A, with each other and then with others, I don't know, it's like there's a lifting of the energy that
Yeah.
that came, and things shifted dramatically and rapidly,
I
by the
must,
way.
no, absolutely. I must just share something very personal, in that being a single mom and having had to navigate this rock bottom, per se, um, with so much change and like so many different things that I had to deal with all in one go, which felt like a mountain. Um, One of the things I was actually very grateful for, because I know how this can destroy relationships, right? I know that marriages can be impacted when there's like like what you were talking about earlier, about both parties losing their jobs and now having to navigate, and think about things differently, and make different decisions. That not everybody is able to pull through that. And I know for a fact that with my personality, and I'm going to own it, I'm very grateful for the fact that in my darkest hour, I was on my own.
Yeah.
My worst moments, when I just feel like the world is against me, I didn't have to still worry about how my attitude and my mood is going to impact my partner. I could just go with it and listen to my body. And if on a day I didn't feel like waking up, I didn't. Tomorrow's another day. And it's it's just something that I'm very grateful for. So it's just a share. I just thought I'd share that.
Right. We're not sharing all the things, but there's a lot of rock bottomy things in this rock bottom that is not being spoken. I mean, there are huge challenges that arises when you're going through difficult things, because how you're showing up to people impacts your relationships with those people. And when you've got 2 or 3 or 4 or more people who are being confronted by challenges, each person responding in a different way, it creates a level of chaos that you have to navigate until you can start that process of owning your reality and then take responsibility and accountability for it. And I think that is what owning your story does. Owning your story, whether you're in a relationship or whether you have the challenges of being by yourself as a single mom or a single dad, or grandparents, you're owning your story. And when you own your story, you're accepting responsibility, you're accepting accountability, and you're discovering the ways in which you can move forward. So,
Yeah.
Melanie, we've spoken about this idea of redefining what success looks like. We've spoken about respecting our resources very, very differently, respecting our social circle very differently. You've spoken about how we have a choice of how we show up. Is there anything else that you feel? I'm like, I've got this idea of, we spoke about before we started the conversation, this idea of reevaluating what's truly important. And I think that came up in the conversation as well. Is there anything else that, rock bottom gifted you with that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think it's the concept of when you, I think there's a quote about it. I'm not so sure, but it's something about walking. You're not going to come out of the storm the same person that you walked in as, and that for me is something it's almost like, I can see shit coming. I know that there's going to be big shit. But I also know, and I take courage and grace from the fact that I'm definitely going to come out stronger, definitely going to come out better. And it's about making that conscious decision. It's that mind shift, that I really just think that, embrace it, like embrace change, embrace adversity, because there's lessons to be learned, and you're definitely going to come out better, stronger, better, yeah, from it.
I think for me, if I were to choose something with which to close the conversation, for me, it might not be true for others, but certainly is true for me. When I'm confronted with that adversity and when I'm confronted with that necessity to accept and take responsibility for the change and to take responsibility for the situation, my contribution to the situation, for me, what became very, very clear was that I needed to develop a new relationship with myself that included some self-compassion and some grace and being merciful towards myself, as opposed to looking at everything that is going wrong as an opportunity to beat myself up with. What happened for me when that started to come into play was that, intellectually, I've always thought of life happens for us, not to us. But I think that I needed to be in a kinder relationship with myself to start really evaluating what are the ways in which life is actually happening for me. What am I being asked to learn? What am I being asked to let go of? And I found that it was easier for me to process the transformations that was needed the moment I became safer with myself, kinder with myself, more graceful with myself. And for many of us, we are perfectionists. We've got these inner critics. We've got these expectations of ourselves and of life. And when it doesn't happen the way we anticipate or want it to happen, we can beat ourselves up. And learning to not beat myself up is probably one of the most essential lessons that rock bottom has taught me in the last 10 years of my life. It's taken
Yeah,
a lot
giving
of rock
yourself some
bottoms.
grace.
It's taken a lot of rock bottoms to learn that. Anything
Yeah,
else
no.
from you, Melanie, before we wrap up this episode?
Um, Not really. Um, I'm just gonna maybe just pull on a quote. Steve Harvey has a quote that says that your setback is the platform for your comeback.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, come back, eh?
Yeah,
Hit your rock bottom, but come back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think for anyone who's listening, if you are going through a very challenging time, you know, extend kindness, extend mercy, extend grace towards yourself. And like Melanie said earlier on, she spoke about asking for help, reevaluating your coping mechanisms, and if there's something that we can offer you as a big, big, big transformational, transitional point, pivot point, is that ability to own your story, to own your reality. Because once you own your reality, you can start creating a new reality.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's it for now.
bye. And if you've got any rock bottom stories to share with us, we would love, love, love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.